So Namaste and welcome to Satsang today. So for this Satsang, wanted to perhaps bring some light to something that wasn't very clear for me. There were many things that weren't clear for me that I got very confused about for a long time. And I want to try to explain one of those things, which is a real shortcut to awakening if we can understand and begin to apply this understanding. It will change everything for us. So what I want to talk about is the seeming link between our attention and the phenomena that we perceive in the outer world, and our outer world, which isn't really outside of us because there is only one being, everything is inside you. But for the sake of explanation, gross tangible phenomena like a body, a table, a laptop, or anything like that. And then the subtle phenomena that are supposedly inside. So thoughts, experiences, sensations, things like that. And for a long time in my awakening, I felt very much that my attention was linked to and controlled by phenomena, most of all thoughts and emotions. So a mind would say something, anything, its usual thing that it does, and my attention would go straight to it, and or some emotion would arise inside, and attention would go straight to that emotion. So no matter how much I had begun to realize who I already was and am still, the infinite silence, consciousness, presence, awareness, noumenon, real self, supreme being, Parabrahman. I'm going to use all these different words for this, the one that it is not a thing, the only substanceless substance that exists. And just pick whichever word you feel most comfortable with: stillness, emptiness, and nothingness. So I'd started to see that I was that. Even in my inquiry, I'd started to experience my self-inquiry that I wasn't a thing, that there's a body here, there's thoughts and emotions and all of that. But the one that was in charge of all of those was not actually a person. I started to see that it was something very different, formlessness. It was silence, stillness. But still then when my mind spoke, or some emotion or some trigger happened, some emotion flushed inside, I seemingly lost that silence and attention was dragged to that phenomenon arising before I seemed to have any control over it at all. Didn't even seem to be a choice where to put my attention. So I'm sure everyone has had many, many experiences like that where you're trying to rest attention on what is real. And for me, a breakthrough happened when I realized, and I hope it might be useful too, that it's not that my attention per se is being led around by my mind. What if it was the other way around, that my mind is thinking so much because attention goes to it, or attention goes to phenomena? What if when we pay attention to mind, it stimulates it to and charges it up to produce a lot of thoughts? And this seemed weird at first, but it really turned everything around, because up until that point, I'd had this feeling that as soon as my mind would stop talking, then and only then could I bring my attention to what was real and leave it there. They would stay there. And I needed my mind to go quiet. So in doing that, in needing something from my mind, I was actually paying it a lot of attention and energizing it because I didn't realize that at the time. So what if we began to allow us to undo this sense that attention has to automatically go to phenomena? What if attention doesn't have to follow phenomena at all? Thoughts, even objects, gross tangible objects. Mostly we're troubled by the subtle objects of thoughts and emotions and sensations in the body. Those are the ones that really, we don't have so many thoughts inside about in seemingly inanimate objects, external things like a chair or a bed, or etc. So what if we trained ourselves? What if real meditation then became a training, a habit forming, that attention stays with that which is not a thing, even when a phenomenon like a thought arises? What would happen, and perhaps you can just imagine it now for a moment, if your mind could say anything at all, literally anything, and your attention didn't automatically go to it, to focus on it? What would that be like if your mind was just talking and you couldn't, not that you chose not to, but that you couldn't pay attention to it? So, or it was always a choice whether you actually did this kind of, if your attention is like this, open and resting on that which is not a thing, the silence, the stillness, the consciousness. And then when mind spoke or some thought arose inside that silence, that stillness, that there was no automatic reflex of the attention to contract around a phenomenon, a thought, an object. Does that have to happen? No, it doesn't. And really all an awakened being has done is to cultivate a habit that attention stays on that which is not a thing, even when mind speaks. And done this by training attention to stay there. And so even just to realize that attention doesn't have to blindly follow around whatever is going on with our senses, whatever we're perceiving through our senses, whatever is going on in our mind and in our emotional state. And then as attention begins to rest more in what is real, then we're not paying so much attention to the mind. It's not that mind is wrong. It's not that mind is bad. It just doesn't have much useful stuff to say about who you really are. Vast and infinite and formless and eternal and everywhere all at once. The source of everything seemingly arising out of you. The universe itself is your creation. What could mind really say about something that is intangible and invisible and inaudible and has no location or is everywhere? So we'll practice this with what's happening with our senses, and then we can move it inward to when watching the space in which the thoughts are appearing inside. So it's just gently using a phenomenon, starting with something, and noticing that your eyes can look at this phenomenon, and your attention doesn't have to automatically go to it. So when you look at something, some object, some phenomenon, you don't have to automatically pay attention to it. And it may seem so completely linked that we might not even know that there is any other way to be. We'll practice this now. We've called it, we've done it many times before, we'll call it zooming out. All we're going to do is pick an object in the room that you're sitting in. And if you've done this before with me, please do it again. We can never do this enough times. So picking an object, I'm looking now at the laptop that I'm using. My eyes are looking at the laptop that I'm using to record this. Now, Pick an object in the room. It could be anything at all. It could be the cat, the dog, a table, the odd sock on the floor, anything at all. And your eyes can lightly rest on that object, that phenomenon. And your attention can notice the space around it, the space that the object is sitting in. So just not staring hard at the object, just lightly noticing. You can blink and everything else. Try not to close your eyes at this point because mind will be looking to avoid seeing what you're about to see, having the understanding. So if you let your eyes rest gently on whatever it is that you're looking at, notice that your attention doesn't have to automatically go with it. You can allow your attention to notice the empty spaciousness around the object. I can do it with my hand, your hand. My eyes are looking at it, but my attention is noticing what's going on around. It's noticing the formlessness around the object. And you can practice it just noticing that your attention is doing something different than your senses are, that they don't have to automatically go together. Normally what human beings do, just for comparison, is my eyes look at my hand and my attention goes right to my hand, and then thoughts start about that object. The moment attention narrows down to look at an object, it stimulates the mind to think. So there's more lines on my hand than there was, and I'm getting older, and wow, I need to moisturize or whatever. And of course, it's just the hand, it's not so much of an issue. But if we're looking at a subtle object like an emotion, if we let the attention contract around the emotion, first of all, we won't be able to feel it properly because we're kind of holding it. It won't be able to move. It's emotion, it's energy in motion. It's supposed to move and dissipate and enlighten itself, its frequency, come back to peace. So if we're looking at a particular subtle object like a thought or an emotion, we're kind of holding it in place with our attention and it can't move. So we'll start to feel bad because we're having to exert effort to keep this thing in place. And perhaps most importantly, our mind is going to begin to think about that thing. So it's going to start to name it and label it and describe it and remember all the times it's experienced that phenomenon before. So if we're looking at shame, it's going to be trying to explain why there's some shame there, how to get rid of it, or talking about how it will never get rid of it, or whatever mind does, on and on. What if mind is just innocently following attention? So let's practice this again. Let's keep our eyes lightly resting on an object. Maybe pick a different object than you just did. Let's put this into practice right now. Bringing your attention to the space around the object. So right now, my eyes are looking at an object, but my attention is on the formlessness that is all around the object and pervading the object. My attention is in an open way. It's not focused on a thing. It's non-focused or attentionless or whatever you want to call that, zoomed out. You'll notice that when attention is in this open, zoomed out way, the mind finds it harder and harder to think. Eventually, it will just go quiet. And if you find that you're thinking about that thing, just checking your attention, is it focused on the space, bringing it back to the empty space. As dull and boring as empty space may seem, it is the one place that we cannot suffer. And we also cannot be in resistance to any of the objects at the same time. They're just happening inside the spaciousness. So eyes open. Let's not drift off just yet. We'll do this for a little while longer, and then we'll close our eyes and do it with our thoughts when they pop up. So maybe gently letting your eyes move around the room. looking at different objects and just resetting your attention to focus on the space around it. Out of habit, attention will go to the object first of all. It always does. We're just building a new habit to let the attention be in this open way. Costs us no energy at all to have attention resting in this open spaciousness, on this open spaciousness. And we're not ignoring the objects, they're still there. We're not denying them either, the phenomena. We're just noticing that everything can kind of work on its own. We don't have to micromanage and think about the phenomena. My body's talking, using these words. It's just doing it by itself while my attention is resting on that which is not a thing. Checking that attention is on the spaciousness, the emptiness. And it just looks like empty space around the object. It's nothing special in that way. We can immediately find it. What is that space in which the object is sitting in? Recognizing that you don't have to let your attention automatically follow the phenomena. So just for a few moments and minutes, let's sit like this. And just bringing attention back to the spaciousness every time you find that it's wandered, because it will. We notice your mind thinking. It's just a little cue to say that attention has shifted back. It's contracted around an object again. No blame, no big deal. It's just a very well-grooved habit that we have. After practicing this, it just becomes easier and easier. That no matter what the body's doing, the mind's doing, attention just comes to rest in this open way. And if you want to now, you can close your eyes, but let's try not to drift off into a deep state right now. Let's close our eyes and just watch for the next thought that arises. Whatever that thought is, it doesn't matter. When you see the thought, see if you can notice it's appearing inside this spaciousness. Whatever that thought is appearing in, that's where attention goes, on the emptiness. Just watching for the next thought. When it pops up, notice attention might go to it out of reflex habit. And then just bringing it into that attention to the open spaciousness around the thought. Just unhooking, uncoupling the attention from the objects. Noticing the space in which the thoughts or an emotion is arising. Or if there is some tension or pain in the body, you can notice that, and then notice the space in which the body's appearing, in which the sensation is appearing. Whenever you notice attention has contracted around a thought, just opening it back up again, noticing the space in which the thought is appearing. That is yourself, your infinite self. Just checking where attention is. Is it zoomed in and contracted? Or zoomed out and open? Paying attention to nothing in particular. Resting as the openness. This is real meditation, forming a new habit just by practice. Little by little, attention will come to prefer being in this open stance where mind can rest and the body relaxes. Our body begins to relax. Freedom is knowing that the attention doesn't have to follow anything at all. The world of forms, phenomena, move quite well by themselves as we just allow attention to rest in this open way. Just checking gently where attention is. Is it looking at a thing, or is it resting on the nothingness? Bringing it back to the empty space. In this way, even when we're not sitting in meditation, when our body is busy, even when our mind is busy, attention is able to still rest. We're not paying attention. We're not exerting energy. We are being that effortless being. After a while, a new habit forms automatically, and attention forgets how to contract around anything. Could awakening be simply this habit being established? So in a few moments, we'll bring this meditation to a close. And as we do so, we can open our eyes, noticing we don't have to go back to our old way of paying attention. We can listen to the words, just noticing the silence in which the words arise, the space in which the objects appear. Same thing. Thank you. I hope you enjoyed that little taste of what it is like to remain with our attention in this open way. And simply a habit to practice. Until it becomes automatic and effortless. So I will go to one of the questions that's been sent in. If anyone would like to ask a question here live on the Satsang, feel free to put your hands up and I'll come to you in a few moments after I've read these. I'll see if I can get through two of these questions. His first one says, "Hi Helen, I don't understand when you say that we are not separated. Separated from what? From whom? If we ask the question, when you look, what do you find? I think we find a body, a mind, and a consciousness. We are all that." So absolutely, when I ask, try to find what I am, at first there is the noticing of the phenomenal aspect of me, which is the body, the thoughts, the emotions, the experiencing that's going on, sense perception. And as you've pointed to here, and consciousness, as I keep looking, I find that there's some consciousness, some awareness, some presence, some intelligence, some sentience. That is all the mind and senses are reporting to. But what we're really trying to recognize in satsang, in our awakening, is that consciousness is not my consciousness. It isn't that there are many consciousnesses that are all part of or all make up together the one consciousness. There is only one unbroken, undivided consciousness. And each body mind is arising out of that. So just having a look and checking, and it's very normal not to understand this at first. I was confused by it too. So having a look at that consciousness itself, the body, the mind, we know a lot about that, but the consciousness, having a look at that and recognizing it's not actually an object. It's not my consciousness that's just sitting inside my brain. If I try to see what that consciousness is, I'll find that I can't actually pinpoint exactly where it is and where it isn't. It's not something that's an object that I can point to and say it's over here or it's only here. There's something there that is not a thing. So just like the space in this room, I can't really say where that is. I can't say it's here or here because it doesn't have a fixed location. It's locationless. It's everywhere it can be. The consciousness is more like that than an object, or even a subtle object of my awareness. If there's my consciousness and the great consciousness, then there's two things, and neither of those can be infinite. So just examining that consciousness, see if you can find exactly where it is and where it isn't. And don't just stop at, most of us go, it seems to be just in my head, or it seems to be just in my body, but see if you can prove that. Can you actually prove that? Okay, so I'll answer this second question, I'll come to the hands up. There's probably enough hands up there for now, so no more hands for the time being. Thank you. Hi, Helen. I exactly don't know what to ask. I'm going through this phase where anything I do either doesn't make sense or doesn't work out. It's as if life wants to tell me that I cannot do anything as a separate self. It seems I'm being asked to surrender everything to the beingness. And a part of me is terrified of it. And the mind says my life will fall apart. I guess my question is, can I surrender fully to self, even with the mind churning up so many doubts? Mind, of course, doesn't believe I can ever fully integrate into the beingness. I don't know if this can be answered, but just wanted to put it out and want your grace and blessings to be, capital B, permanently at all times. Lots of love and gratitude. Always, always have every blessing I could ever give, always, and never withheld. It's 24/7. So the mind is going to be terrified of surrendering like this because it thinks that it's something that you have to do. Something is letting go of trying hard to manage life and fix life. But something is kind of surrendering, something's dissolving, something's becoming more fluid. And usually as human beings, we only embrace that surrender when the rest of our life just isn't working and the rest of our awakening isn't working. So as you said here, it just doesn't work. And finally, we're backed into a corner where we've got no other choice, really. So, and absolutely, you can do this even while the mind is doubting. My mind, if I knew where it was, would still be saying the exact same things as you pointed to here. You're never going to do it. It's not possible to live as a human being without thinking or without referencing thoughts. It would say, you're not even worthy of awakening. It would say all those things still, I'm sure, if I was really paying attention to it. But the surrender is going on anyway, isn't it? If we really look. Despite our best resistance, I remember this feeling of being terrified, feeling like I was being walked to the edge of a cliff and being asked to jump off it, metaphoric cliff, of course. But what I came to see is I already jumped a long time ago and I'm falling still. I've never hit the bottom of that. And life became wonderful after that. So even with mind's doubts, even with mind's commentary and holding on resistance going on inside, still the surrender will happen anyway. Why? Because you're not changing, you're not actually even surrendering to the beingness. That's the mind that's doing that. You're already the beingness. There isn't anything for you to do except watch this thought construct itself, kind of untangle itself inside you, and more peace come because of that. So surrender then to the beingness really, or the infinite self, just becomes seeing clearer who you already are. That this job that you've given yourself isn't yours. You don't have to surrender. You are it already. Mind is the one that's surrendering. So it cannot be stopped then because you are already it. Nothing can stop your awakening ever. We can drag our heels. We can do our best accidentally to slow it down, but it cannot be stopped ever because it is already what you are. How can you fail to be what you already are? You can't, can you? So looking at that job and seeing if it's yours. Okay, we'll go to Robert first, whenever you're ready, Robert.
I'm assuming that's me. Am I the only Robert?
You are. You're the only one.
I may be repeating things that you discussed previously because this is my first time.
That's okay. I'm
With
glad you're here.
Satsang.
Welcome.
And it was mainly about, I know it's something that generally comes up with most people on this path of doership. And I think as much as you can with your mind, I have an understanding.
Mhm.
But just to clarify that. And basically it was that actually there is no, the terminology, it's nuanced, it's more, there's no separate doer. There is a doer, but actually there's no separate doer. And as that's me as a separate individual, there is a doer, but that's life and or consciousness or whatever you want to call it. And that's where choice is made and all those things. But it's almost going full circle because you come back to realizing it is you that is the doer and the one making the choices, but from a different perspective.
Yeah.
Is that sort of about
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, the you in that has changed. The definition of that I or you, in this case is vastly different, isn't it, from what we originally thought it to be. And the choosing, the doing, the deciding, all of that is just kind of arising spontaneously inside that. There's no separate entity going, right, this is what we're going to do, or I've done it wrong, or all that stuff that comes. I'm not doing enough. I'm doing too much. So the doing is just happening, and the infinite beingness, consciousness, whatever, is just here. And the doing that seems to be going on is really just the expansion of manifestation of the phenomenal realm. It's always in expansion, and that looks like life expanding through us as us. And from there, the doingness is pretty much always successful. The choices are always the best choices for us.
Because ultimately it's the one thing that's making those decisions from all aspects. I think the best example I heard of trying to, because I know for a lot of people it can seem very disempowering. It's like, oh, there's no doer, therefore there's nothing to be done. Well, it's that sense of, it sounds weird, but the only way I sort of got my head around it a little bit was on a very tangible basis was if you cut yourself down the middle, there is no person in there. It's just a load of organs. And so, there's no person in there doing it. So I'm not making my heart beat, all the different things. And that's sort of the stance I've taken is that there is nobody in there, but there is, as someone said, if you have a bag of flour, that flour can create pasta, bread, cakes, everything.
Yeah.
And they're individuations in themselves. And again, so there are individuals and there's things happening, but ultimately it's coming from one thing, and that is what I am. So ultimately I am creating, doing this thing. But as I say, it's just the different stance points that you sort of rest into ultimately.
Yeah, it's very disempowering to just stop at there's no separate doer, as you realize you're doing all of this. Whatever this is your doing, just like these words right now. And from there's a relaxation into that, because we're all individual but not separate expressions of that.
Yeah.
And we can't really make any independent actions from there. We are the universe moving as one, and that brings a safety and a harmony and a peace from that place. What we usually do is we stop at the realization there's no separate doer, and we always say, what's the point in all this then? All that stuff, it seems very pointless then. But going for, if I'm not a separate self and I am here, I must be something very different to what I thought. And that is the one consciousness that's everywhere.
Great. Thank you. That's great. I won't take any more of your time up because I know there's other people.
Thank you. Nice to meet you. Nice to talk.
Yeah, likewise. Thank you, Helen.
Okay, we'll go to Hans next.
Hi, Helen.
Hi.
Was really great meditation. Essentially, in the beginning, it was really going very well with the different phenomena. And then came with the thoughts as well, and I could, yeah, it was like I could go around and see the space around. Then at a certain moment came in, but now it feels like I'm really the doer. I'm really doing this from the separate self.
Mm-hmm.
And said, oh, and then it was interesting. So that was my first question, but I think I have to go on because I said, okay, now I'm going to ask this at Helen. And when this came in, I felt nervous. And I could quickly see this and say, oh, I have to do the same now. And perhaps I can go around nervousness and see what happens. But this seemed to be very, very difficult for me. So if for the objects, it was okay. But when nervous and I'm really stress is one of my biggest issues since many years. And I could really see, yeah, this is a difficult one. When I'm getting nervous, how to go around this one and take it in, and okay, I could accept it, and okay, it's there. But the exercise became difficult for me. So perhaps you can give me any advice around this.
Yeah, so noticing that the nerves came in when the sense of you doing it came as a separate being, right? The two things are so extraordinarily linked, because if I am a separate self having to do this awakening, having to manage my attention, I might do it wrong or whatever, right? And then suddenly the fear, the nerves, the stress. Of course, the same thing applies to things we're doing in our daily life. I might do it wrong.
Yeah.
Let's just prove right now that you're not doing it if you want to, and you can really everyone can follow along with this if you want to have a go. And just picking an object in the room and looking at that particular object. I'll use my hand. And of course, you don't need to look at me as I'm talking for this. Just looking at that object with your eyes, then really putting attention on it, really zooming into it. Maybe notice the color and the shape and the texture or whatever. And now I'm going to ask you to keep your eyes on the object, but shift your attention to the space around it. So noticing the space around the object. All good so far?
Yes.
So I'm going to ask you, did you do anything to make attention move?
No. Nothing.
Let's zoom back in. Put your attention back on that object again. And then zoom back out to the space around it. Did you do anything in that?
There's like something in my eyes. It's like a slightly different feeling I have in my eyes. But yeah, perhaps I'm doing it on purpose and it's just happening.
Did you flip a switch or anything? Or was it just the merest intention for attention to open up and it did? The merest desire, I'd like attention to open up, and it opened up. It went to the spaciousness.
Yeah.
So that's not a doing, is it? That's an intention arising.
All right. Yeah.
And where did that intention arise from? Is there any separate being it came from?
No, not at all.
Where did it come from then, this intention? What caused it to appear?
No idea. It just happened.
So you're not even doing that. You're not even doing the intention, right?
No, don't have that feeling now. No.
And how does your body feel when you recognize that? Is it relaxed or is it tense?
It's very relaxed now.
So we're just pulling apart this assumption that you're doing even this spiritual work. What if this whole satsang was just happening in front of us?
Wow.
Spontaneously. Can you screw up your awakening from there then?
No.
Because this is the thing that we get most stressed about, because it's the thing we want more than anything, awakening. So just proving this to ourselves. Even if I say, and when I say the words, shift your attention to the spaciousness, we just assume that we've done something to make that happen.
Mm.
Not even my words are causing that, because there's no separate being to do it. Maybe your attention was about to shift and my words were there at the same time, because we're one being. It's a very different way to look at it, isn't it?
Oh yeah, I really feel emotional of gratitude now.
The good news is you're off the hook. You can't get this wrong. It's going to happen anyway. I know it'll be a lot more fun now.
Thank you.
Thank you. Wonderful, wonderful. Good to talk to you. Okay, we'll go to Marguerite. Hope I'm pronouncing that correctly.
Hi, Helen.
Hi. Did I say
Really
it
nice.
correctly?
Sorry?
Did I say it correctly, hopefully?
Yeah, Marguerite. That's good. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yeah, well, I have discovered your teachings a few weeks ago, and I'm very, very grateful because I've been researching non-duality for some years, actually. And this is the first time that it's been so practical. I had a period that it was quite obsessive for me. So it really became an obsession. And I actually thought, well, it may be better if I just take some space, some time off from this thing.
I
Because
tried that several times and it just didn't work.
well, I actually came back to it because of you, because it really gave me the tools to experience all the stuff that I was more like, that was more theoretical. I really experienced because of your videos. So that's so nice.
Good. Wonderful.
My question actually is, I've been in a bit of a rough patch for the last 3 years, because I've been sick with long COVID. And I also watched a video of you talking about like the deeper beliefs that are under diseases. And I already did some contemplation. But I feel that I don't really get somewhere. Maybe that's not so bad, but I really don't know if I'm not getting it, or maybe I'm too distracted. So I thought maybe you can
We can do it together here.
help me.
Right? Yeah.
Yeah, that would be really nice.
So let's look at with anything that's going on in our body and our world, it's going to mirror, it's going to be a mirror image of whatever emotion we're feeling. And that emotion is also a mirror image of some deep belief that we're holding on to without realizing. So mostly we try to change the outside world or all of that. So let's look at what are the emotions that come up for you around this.
Fear is a big one.
Yeah.
Sense of, I don't know if it's emotion, a sense of powerlessness.
Yeah.
Sadness. wordlessness.
Which one of those does it feel stronger? Which one of those is sort of shouting most loudly at the moment? Or maybe not right now, but
I think the powerlessness.
mhm.
It's because all of the life areas are not as I want them to be.
Yeah. Let's turn that into a question and a feeling of powerlessness. And we're going to ask the question, is it true? Is it really true I'm powerless? Because that's the core of this, isn't it? If it isn't true that you're powerless, then there's some shift going to come out of that. So with this, we're just going to ask this question together. Is it really true I'm powerless? We're not going to attach it to the long COVID or anything else, because those are mirror images. We just want to stick with the root belief here. So let's just ask this question together and see what answers come. And we're going to include every single answer. So if the cat meows, that's an answer. If someone knocks on the door, if thoughts pop up, if there's a feeling in the body, an emotion, anything and everything that happens when we ask this question. So we're not really trying hard here at all. We're just, like you and I, just sitting with this question, seeing what happens. So just whenever you notice an answer, just letting us know. It could be that the air conditioning or the heating kicks in, or the weirdest kind of answers, but we're going to include everything. Yeah.
Cool.
So no pressure, and it doesn't matter if there's long periods where neither of us are talking. Just any answers that come, and then if you don't mind sharing those with us, we can look at what happens. So is it really true that I'm powerless? Anybody else that wants to do this along at the same time is more than welcome. What happens when you ask this question?
I feel a bit of sadness coming up.
So we're going to notice different types of answers. We're going to notice emotional answers like this. So we're not ignoring it. We're doing our best to feel it, but there isn't any right or wrong answer. We're just going to come back to the question, let the sadness just be there best you can. Coming back to the question. Is it really true that I'm powerless?
I feel spacious.
Yeah.
Spaciousness. And a kind of abundance. Abundant feeling.
Those are probably much nicer answers feeling in the body than sadness. But again, they're not the right answer. There's no right or wrong. We're just staying open, enjoying them, coming back to the question gently inside.
And hearing the heating.
Is it really true that I'm powerless?
I got a sense of there's nothing.
And just checking in with your body. How's your body feeling while you're asking this with me here?
There's a lot of fear, but it's also because I think it's quite exciting.
And again, just another emotional answer, not right or wrong, just an answer. All answers are equal. And just coming back gently to the question. Is it true that I'm powerless?
Yeah, I feel there's like a whole. I don't know how to say it in English. Like everything is in a sort of harmony, and there's sort of friendliness.
Beautiful, lovely. Does the body relax with that a little bit?
Yeah.
That's another kind of answer as well. The body just, something like that. Yeah.
Yeah, and I get a little bit of shivers.
So again, just enjoying it, but coming back to the question gently. The question is more important than any of the answers, really, because we're open when we're questioning. Is it really true I'm powerless?
I was thinking, like, who am I asking this? Because as a body, I feel powerless. And I feel in this, I get switched from one to the other. Like when there's this spaciousness, there is no powerlessness because it's abundant and free.
Could never be
But
powerless, could it? That, yeah.
No, but my body wants to feels powerless because it's not doing the things it wants to do.
So hanging out in the openness of the question, it begins to become clear that you're not powerless, nor could you ever be. But perhaps the body is still, for the moment, reflecting that idea back to us. The body hasn't quite caught up with that yet. The body is reflecting what we have been thinking quite consistently. But even as we're asking this question, the body's relaxing. So something is starting to change even there. And all we've done is to stay with the question. That's all we've done. Notice the answers and then coming back to the question.
Yeah.
So that's 5 minutes or something. We've done that. Can you imagine as you stay with it for 20 minutes, 10 minutes, you're going to start to experience many more positive answers. The answers are getting nicer and nicer as we go along. Not that that's the reason we're doing it, but of course we can enjoy them. And in the openness of the question, I'm not believing the thought, I am powerless. Therefore, whatever energies need to move in the body, it can begin to restore itself and rebalance itself and heal itself then.
Yeah, that's beautiful.
I mean, can we ever really have what we want if deep down we believe that we're powerless over everything? It's just not really possible. We're going to keep living that belief, aren't we? I'm powerless over COVID. I'm powerless over money. I'm powerless or whatever it is that's going on for us.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's because I also do the other inquiries in your videos where I'm recognizing who I really am. So I'm not the body that says I have this illness and I can't do anything about it. So it's really beautiful that it's, yeah.
What if your body is helping you? What if your body is showing you that you still aren't fully convinced? We all we see who we really are, and in that it shows us where we still believe in these old ideas. Maybe your body's even helping you in a way to say, this is what you're still believing. It just needs a little investigating. My finances were happy to show me. My body was happy to show me.
Yeah.
Relationships, all of it.
Yeah. And I'm so grateful that I can see it this way because it makes such a difference. Yeah.
The body is just always reflecting back to us what we are holding on to inside. So it's innocent in that way. You know, it's even helpful in the whole process. And we wouldn't know these ideas are in there unless we were experiencing them. So
That's true. Yeah. Yeah. Wow.
Wonderful. So just sitting with this question during the day when you've got some time, and just not for any reason other than it's nice to sit with a question,
Yeah. Yeah.
and then let the body, sort of bathe in that energy. It's nice.
I'll do that.
Wonderful. Nice
Thank
to
you so
talk.
much.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Really is. Thank you, Helen.
Bye.
Bye.
Last but not least is Holly.
Thank you, Helen.
Hi.
I'm really enjoying doing the dissolving the ego course.
Wonderful. Wonderful.
Yeah. So my questions today relate to the exercise that we did earlier.
Mhm.
The first thing that I noticed is when I'm focusing on the space sort of around things, then particularly when I was doing it with eyes closed and noticing the thoughts, there's a sleepiness that comes.
Yeah.
But even when I'm doing it with my eyes open, I'm having the thought that if like I were doing this while I was cutting vegetables, I'd be worried that I would cut myself.
Yeah.
Or, it's like I wouldn't want to be doing that while I'm driving. So I'm wondering if you might sort of comment, or I thought even if I were speaking with a friend of mine, maybe they're having, some emotional challenges and I'm wanting to be really present to them.
Yeah.
I just have this sense of not being fully present. And if you would comment on that.
It's very common to have that sleepiness at first because it's been so long that we have been paying attention pretty much consistently to thoughts. Perhaps so lost in our world up here that we haven't really been very present at all. And it costs us so much energy to contract our attention around a thought or an object. And it pretty much ignore everything else that we are, the rest of the infinite self, and we're just focusing on one little tiny aspect of it. So when we stop doing that, even for a second, then the body can kind of relax because it's not constantly feeling the effect of whatever thought we're focusing on. The body's always living the effect of whatever thought we're paying attention to. And when we stop, when we kind of zoom out and pay attention to the spaciousness, the only time that we're not paying attention to thoughts usually is when we're asleep. So as soon as we unhook our attention from thoughts, the body kind of goes, oh, it must be bedtime. It must be sleep time, something like that. And this meditation is great. And then we're gone, snoring and maybe a little drooling going, well, that was just me. But you get the idea. The body gets used to that this is the only time when we're not paying attention to thoughts. So gradually, as you do this, at first you can only do this while you're sitting still and there's no other stimuli going on. But gradually, even as you are interacting with someone, walking, moving, chopping, because your eyes are still looking at the knife and the veg, but you're just not thinking about the process. Your attention is here, totally present. So after a while, you begin to adjust to it's being described as being asleep, like being asleep while you're awake, but it's not really. It's only in that you're not exerting any energy because attention is just open all the time. Thoughts might come and go, anything's happening in that, and you're just here. You just exist.
So the more I practice, then the more the sleepiness will go away because there's not a direct association with that.
Yeah, and plus at first the body has been so tense and so tight for so long with our doing, trying, seeking, you know that one we all do. That sometimes it is extra tired at first. There was a period when I needed a lot of sleep as it started to unwind. So there might be that going on as well, just for a short while. But mostly you get used to functioning on very slow brainwaves. When we're thinking all the time, our brainwaves are very fast. I mean, normally as human beings, we only experience the slow brain waves in deep sleep. Slower in the dream state and, much slower in deep sleep. An awakened being has those deep sleep kind of brain waves going on while they're talking and moving around because there isn't all this stuff going on up here. So it just, you adjust bit by bit. As you get used to it, you can realize you can function like that. You can do anything like that. What seemed impossible before. And you just adjust. Finally, you're walking and talking and laughing and doing all that stuff in a state that you probably would have fallen asleep in before completely. It's not a state, but there isn't really another word. You get the idea.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, thank you. And the other question relates to the gentleman earlier who was also asking about this, and you asked, did you do anything? When we were doing the zoom in, zoom out
Mm-hmm.
sort of exercise. And I mean, my answer is yes. It's like I'm following your instructions. Did I do it? Yeah, I followed instructions. So I'm just having some difficulty sort of piecing that apart.
It's okay. So when you move your attention from something to the empty spaciousness in the room, did you actually move it? Or did it just kind of go on its own?
Well, I noticed that there's something that's responding,
Yeah.
and so, it seems like a shift in intention.
Shift in intention, yeah.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
that's what and maybe it's that I'm associating that with the idea of doing.
Yeah, because we think that we're choosing our thoughts like that. And we think that thoughts cause actions. Even this subtle action of moving attention from here to here.
Mm-hmm.
But if we really look, I don't know if you've been able to do this yet, we can do it if you like, but you can't actually find any entity there's nobody living in this body. There's just the consciousness that's everywhere. Spacious consciousness, whatever we're calling it, and the body appearing inside it. So when we really look, we can't find anyone that's making any of this happen. We can just notice the intention arising for attention to shift, and somehow it happens.
Yes.
If you really kind of look at that process, there's an unconscious idea that I made that happen somehow. And yet when we really sort of look at it closely, we can't really find how it happened. It just seemed to happen. It's bizarre because forever we've believed that if I have the thought now I want a cup of tea, that will actually cause my body to get up and go and make a cup of tea. What if it was just going to do it anyway, and the thought popped up at the same time? And checking and seeing there isn't actually a separate being there that's doing all of this. Even this subtle thing like shifting attention, it's very, very powerful.
Yeah.
Just to kind of slow down and look at it, because we just assume that if somebody says, okay, bring attention, okay, I did that, now my attention is on the space. And if we don't examine that idea, it just remains there, doesn't it, in place?
So what would you recommend for how I can kind of get closer to that? I mean, inquiring, is there a doer? Or
Yeah,
maybe?
or we could look right now for a separate self, see if we can find it, if you want to, a doer.
Yeah.
Yeah. And everyone can do this at the same time if you want to. Let's just look and see if we can find a separate person living in that body, a separate being.
Well, I find an awakeness.
Yeah. And is that you that's awake, or is it just awakeness? Is it a person awake or just awakeness?
I would have to say that I kind of find both, in that there's a collection of thoughts or identities that are kind of floating around.
Are
That
those
I
the awakeness, or are they thought?
no, those aren't awakeness.
Let's just go right to the awakeness itself,
Hmm.
just for the time being. Is it a personal thing? Is it
Yeah.
Holly's awakeness and there would be Helen's awakeness?
Well, I have to say, I don't know, because I just don't. Yeah, I have no idea.
Can you say, this might be a difficult question, and don't worry if you can't answer it, it's totally okay. Can you say where it is, that awakeness? Is it an object that you can point to?
No, it's just here.
It's just here. So you can't really point your finger at it and go, it's there, or it's there, or it's here. It's kind of, it's not an object. It doesn't have a location.
There's no location. Yeah.
And so if my body was sat in the chair across from you there, where would your awakeness stop and mine start? Would there be an imaginary line, a dividing line between your awakeness and mine, halfway between the bodies?
I really don't know.
Just something to investigate there, right?
Hmm.
Because the idea that this awakeness is somehow an object, just mine, a very subtle object, and that if you were sat across there, there'd be yours and there'd be mine. That's kind of what perpetuates this idea that we're doing something, this separate doer.
Right.
When I really looked at it myself, I found this awakeness to be totally intangible. And I looked at, can I actually divide that into two then? Into mine and yours? Does it really still hold up? We could do that with an object, we could split an object, but could we do that with something that's more like the space in the room?
Hmm.
As I looked at that, it became clearer and clearer that there is only awakeness expressing itself as unique individual body minds. But there's only one awakeness. Just to kind of feel around at the assumptions we hold on to. Like I didn't realize I had an assumption that my awakeness, awareness, consciousness was mine, separate to everyone else's, until I really looked at it like this. It's not just having a little poke around and, seeing what you can find of yourself.
Okay.
Wonderful.
Thank you.
Did very well there. Thank you. Nice to talk to you.
Nice to talk to you.
Okay, wonderful. So we'll leave it there for today. Thank you so much, everyone, for the questions you've sent in and what you asked today here on the session. Very deep and insightful and profound. And as always, you amaze me with your insight and your clarity, things that I would never have even thought to ask when I was seeking. So the evolution of consciousness as human beings is very much unfolding. So thank you for your presence here on the Satsang too. Beautiful to come together. Thank you. Namaste.